what is the biggest thing that's keeping you stuck? Why do you feel discontent despite achieving what you thought you needed? Something's missing. You've tried other solutions, but nothing has truly fixed your problem, up until now. Download the 3 reasons you're feeling discontent and how to fix it fast at www.jedbrotherson.com and quickly create a clear roadmap that helps you find peace, clarity, and fulfillment. Welcome to the Pulverizing the Patterns podcast, where Jed Brotherson takes you on a journey to confront the roots of your discontent and emerge significant. Each week, we dive deep into themes like overcoming harmful family dynamics, standing up for yourself with courage, speaking out against injustice, and cultivating healthy, authentic relationships. Be sure you visit our website at www.pulverizingthepatterns.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, get ready for empowering stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies that help you break free from negative patterns and create a life rooted in self-respect, clarity, and connection.
Today's episode is titled, I'm Your Voice, How Podcasting Pulverizes the Patterns. I'm joined by Adam Hommey, creator of Launch Your Podcast Fast, speaker, trainer, consultant, and author of Groundhog Day is an Event, Not a Business Strategy, and much more. Adam helps you break free from limiting beliefs and launch your own podcast as a powerful tool for networking, client attraction, and personal branding. As a creator of the podcast Reach system, Adam helps you create and launch your podcast as your key networking, client attraction, and celebrity expert branding tool. People seek him out for expert consultation on topics related to launching or hosting your podcast, entrepreneurship, business creation, communication skills, and much more. Today, we will discuss how podcasting can be used as a tool to help you pulverize the patterns that hold you back, empowering you to live the life that you want. Adam, welcome to the show.
You know, Jed, I was just thinking that this morning, as I was preparing for our conversation, that you and I have actually known each other for 4.5 years already.
It has been.
I don't know why I randomly thought of that, but what it tells me about is the circles of life and how they sometimes run asynchronously, but they tend to bring us together at the most opportune or meaningful times. And I think that this is actually one of them, particularly as you are bringing pulverizing the patterns to the market. And we have had so many conversations about how it is so critical for those of us who have the platform to do so to help others express their voice when they find themselves in a place where they may be reticent or somehow feel blocked from doing so.
Man, that's well put. That's amazing. I know that's how I felt as I was beginning is to have the help from others that are experienced and help me find that voice. That's amazing. Adam, what from the obvious marketing and publicity events, what inspired you to launch your podcast and start helping others?
Well, I could say that the angels came down from heaven, or I saw a giant neon sign, or there was a message on the Goodyear blimp that floated over my sumptuous apartment here in Las Vegas, known to some on some days as the hottest city in America. But what it really comes down to is up until the end of 2012, when I was in one of my previous businesses, this is when I was in the website conversion consulting business. Every Monday, I create a video called the Monday Marketing Moment, where I shared some principle of marketing or business. And then every Tuesday, I did the Tuesday Technology Tip, where I shared some techie advice or some little demo, something along those lines, designed to help make it easier for business creators to win at the game of business and marketing. This eventually became tedious. I started to run out of topics. And I was aware of podcasting for some time, and it was really at that point coming into its own as a separate discipline of business and marketing. So I decided that I was going to get into it myself. Now, funny story, there's one slight delay to it. Right around that same time, I had recently done a speaking tour, and I had offered a program from stage at 3 different these different events. I believe it was called Build Your Website on WordPress 202 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But the point was is I was teaching a bunch of folks who wanted to have the institutional knowledge of how to create a website on WordPress themselves, how to do it. And I needed a demo to use for the lessons. So I thought, I'm going to do this podcast at some point. I acquired the domain that I was going to use for the podcast. And in the videos, I demonstrated myself building it. Then I let it sit for 9 months. And then in September of 2013, for some reason that I actually was probably not consciously aware of at the time, I just started doing the interviews. So I'd like to say that there was some major epiphany, but it was more just a combination of mundane factors.
I just like how you're following the flow of life, like the New Age movement about helping us find and eliminate these emotions, the whole pulverizing the patterns, and the trick is just follow what we want to do, and you're a living, breathing example.
Sure.
In your book, Groundhog Day is an event, not a business strategy. You talk about breaking free from these limiting beliefs. And what do you find that the people you're helping, what are you finding some of the most common roadblocks that they have, or the beliefs that they struggle with? What are you finding as their most common ones, and how do you help people overcome those blocks?
There are many, but I'll mention two that seem to come up over and over again. One of which is, well, what do I have to say? What's so unique about me? There's so many podcasts out there already. Why would somebody tune into mine? Nobody's going to tune in and listen anyway. Well, that's actually, I'm going to reveal a little secret to you here, is you see some of your most popular podcasts within various niches in the market, and some of the most well-known podcasts, if you actually dig into their statistics, the dirty little secret is many of them have very few listeners and downloads at all. When we define those terms, a listener is somebody who clicked play. A downloader is somebody who clicked the link that said download and stored the MP3 of that podcast episode to their hard drive or to the cloud. Does that mean they listened the whole time? Does that mean they consumed the content? Does that mean they were even paying attention while it was streaming? There are so many variables that stand between the idea of somebody listening or downloading versus actually comprehending and immersing themselves in the material. On the other hand, these same podcasts have a lot of dedicated fans because the podcasts themselves, just through their own marketing and through the perceived notoriety of their hosts and some of the people who they have on as their guests, become well known. Folks will read the social media posts, they'll watch the little reels and shorts, and they'll declare that they are informed as to what's on that podcast. That's one. The other is that folks will be held back by perfectionism. And what's beautiful about podcasting is it's what's known as meta marketing. It actually works better when it's authentic. We have worked with clients, and I have heard stories of folks who wanted to edit out every single verbal pause, who would do 15 takes. And not very often, but sporadically on my own show, the Business Creators Radio Show, I will have people come to me and they say, well, are we going to be able to edit this? Are we able to do it again? And I'll tell them absolutely not. The only thing we edit for is if there's a technical issue. That's it. The idea is it's free flow. It's a mastermind level conversation. And we're not going to get into that level of perfectionism because that's actually the opposite of attractive. People tune into podcasts because they want to hear real conversations, real talk from real people. This is not like going on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or any of the retail podcasts out there. We have a 6-minute appearance and it's clipped and it's governed by very strict bullet points. There's to a degree, it's free flowing. So when you approach podcasting that way, whether you're a host or a guest, and view it as more of a mastermind conversation than either a presentation or an interrogative Q&A, to me, that helps to blow away some of those mental roadblocks. It's when you take a couple of the concepts I've shared today, one of which was looking for an easier way to generate content than creating 2 Camtasia presentations every week, and the idea of meta marketing, Think about how much simpler that is and what a high volume of content you can create very quickly. And while you're doing it, you're also building a network and creating connections.
Right. Right. I like how you're saying that number two problem, feeling the need to be perfect. I know that you've helped me overcome that a lot with your expertise and just and just relying on the vast knowledge that you have about how to do this lets me rely on your confidence to say, hey, this is the best way to do it, and don't judge yourself. And for some reason, just knowing that and hearing that, it's helped me a lot to get through that specific block.
Right. If I can add one more thing, I'm going to say this for what it is. And I say this with all the love I can muster, is you have folks in regulated industries, such as financial advisory, certain types of real estate, regulated agencies where they have compliance departments. And every so often, I will have somebody who works in one of these industries. Sometimes they'll reveal it beforehand. Sometimes it'll be after the episode is recorded. They'll say, can you send me a copy of the episode? I need my compliance to review it. We may have edits. And I'll just tell them flat out, we don't deal with compliance departments. You said what you said. You made the choice to be in that industry. It's one of the, with all things in life, there are trade-offs. And for the work that you chose, one of the trade-offs is you have your free speech restricted by government regulation. That's perfectly fine from your perspective, but from our perspective, we had a conversation, and candidly, if there's something you were not allowed to say, I trusted you. You shouldn't have said it. And this actually, see, here's the mastermind principle in action, Jed. We're having a mastermind conversation, is that I just thought of this whole thing while I was riffing about it. I just sort of jumped in with this. This wasn't even part of the plan. When you think about how podcasting becomes so powerful, and I know one of the things we're going to talk about is the importance of pulverizing patterns within our work, and how that can hold us back from launching and sustaining a podcast when you face that self-doubt or hesitation, is to keep in mind that when you find yourself in the zone, when you find yourself in the flow, a lot of that self-doubt and hesitation will have its own way of just evaporating. Again, you're having a conversation. My own podcast is designed so it is essentially a mastermind conversation that the audience is listening in on. Just like what you and I are doing right now is a bit of masterminding. You helped me with masterminding just right then. You inspired me to have a thought that I wasn't even thinking of. And I'm not criticizing regulatory agencies. I'm just saying that my show's made a choice that we just don't play that game. But it led me to think of something else that I think is really important, which is some of the self-doubt or some of the hesitation. And when you think about how podcasting is meta marketing, and when you think about how you become the voice for your audience and how you can go into masterminding mode, those are three factors that can help take that self-doubt and hesitation. It can pulverize it. It can blow it away, or it can enable you to pick up that self-doubt and hesitation, say, I have this self-doubt and hesitation. This exists. I'm going to put it in this box. I'm going to seal the box. I'm going to tie a nice ribbon on it. I'm going to put it up on my shelf. And I'm going to know the self-doubt and hesitation are there. I'm not going to resist them. I'm not going to fight them. But at the same time, I'm going to clear the path so that I can be the voice.
Right. Right. I was just going to ask how you do this for people. And that's said. So just like how you did it in the book, right? How we, clear the self-doubt, the hesitation, get into mastermind mode, and just letting the conversation flow, the blocks, many of the blocks just evaporate. And I it's funny now where I'm at. When I started, I wouldn't have understood what you're talking about right now. That fear was too big and too much in my way. And it's one of the things that I'm so excited to talk about this with you about, to help people understand that, like, stop worrying about it. Just go for it. Because I know you've helped me live how this does it, right? And so how do you help as people decide to join or start a podcast and they want to use your experience or something, how do listeners better understand how hosting the podcast opens these doors?
How hosting the podcast opens. Oh, I love that. I love this one here. So, Jed, I know that you're in the early stages of your podcasting journey with this show of yours, this brand new show of yours just hitting the marketplace. But as it attracts attention, you're going to eventually start getting emails from pretty much every random person. These emails are going to be about this long. They're going to be in tiny little font. And it's going to be somebody lying and claiming they listened to like 12 of your episodes and asking where they can leave you a review on iTunes, which is properly called Apple Podcasts, by the way. And then they're going to go on, I have the best guest for you ever. Their name is blah, 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 credential, me. Here's 19 different topics I can speak on. What is the process to get on your show? Blah, 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 blah. And then they're keep re-forwarding and re-forwarding it. So, this is really not a very effective way to get on shows. And the reason I bring that up is it's something that a lot of podcasters deal with, and they kind of chuckle at in a way, is that everybody will all of a sudden want to be on your show. And you also hear stories of folks who will write these really elaborate pitch letters they think are genius pieces of copywriting. They'll send them to 100 podcasters, and they'll get like one booking and 12 different podcasters telling them, go away, I never asked for you, and crickets everywhere else. See, that's why I can describe this is through a couple stories I have. One of which is, I believe his name is Andy Grant, if I remember his name correctly. I don't have it right in front of me. And if I butchered that, I apologize. But he has a podcast called The Real Men Project. And I had him on one of my shows, and we were speaking about some business stuff. And it occurred to me that I'd wanted for the longest time to be interviewed about the health impacts of trypanophobia on our society. I think it's our greatest health crisis. The fear of getting hypodermic injections or having blood draws done. 50 million people in the United States alone, that's about 1/6 of our population, live with some degree of trypanophobia. In some cases, it's mild. In some cases, it's extremely severe. But what it ends up doing is causing them to sometimes not receive necessary or critical medical attention. They literally would rather die than get a shot. I'm not joking. This is a health crisis, and I'd wanted to do an interview about that on somebody's show. I also wanted to tie that to perceptions of manhood, and I think some of our listeners can relate to this. And they may remember when they went to the doctor's office when they were a kid and it was time for them to get their shot or whatever. And they're like, oh, and they're afraid of it. And then somebody leans down and says in their ear, stop your whining, or when we get home, I'll give you something to really cry about. Well, that ties into concepts of manhood, like a real man's not going to be afraid to get a shot. Well, I'll tell you, I am a real man. And if you show me a hypodermic needle and make a credible case you're going to stick it in my arm, there's about a 90% chance I'm just going to pass out right then and there. It's not because I want to. I would rather not deal with that. It's a physiological reaction that cuts off my circulation, causes everything to go white and plop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's trypanophobia. I don't wish that on myself. I wish I didn't have that. Yeah. So I wanted to do an episode that linked all those things together and helped to have a new conversation about the meaning of manhood in general. Now, having Andy on my show meant I could have a little conversation in the green room about it with him. And he'd say, sure, absolutely. That sounds great. Why don't you come on my show? But if I had approached him cold with a pitch letter, even if I tailored it to his show, someone like him could have said, wait, this guy's a podcaster. He's not what we're looking for next.
Right.
So for folks who want to get on more podcasts, to be guests on more podcasts, I highly recommend you host your own show, because by hosting your show, you lead the conversation with reciprocity because you're putting it on the table first. And then you're getting to make that personal connection. It'll help people see past all the pitch letters and long emails and one sheets and appreciate what you have to say and see for themselves that you're the person who can really help their audience, even if it is quote unquote off topic for you.
I love that, because that totally answers that. Like how we could help people understand that launching a podcast kind of helps challenge your narrative and thinking, and it just opens your mind to a new way of solving problems. And man, that's so relevant right there. That, because the pitch letters, getting past the pitch letters, past all of that stuff, and you're just getting back to the people, working with the people. That's, to me, that's how it feels much more natural.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. And then I wanted to ask how in this big journey, because it's been a while, and we've known each other, like you said, 4.5 years, but you've been doing it quite a while. How has just doing the podcasting, how has that brought more happiness to your life?
Well, first of all, I don't have to think very hard about creating content.
Yeah. Okay.
Second of all, I have content creators beating down my door. I have a weekly show that has to run 2, sometimes 3 episodes a week, for the simple reason is I encounter so many folks who want to be on the show that when they fill out our application and I take a quick glance at them, I say, yes, this is somebody I very strongly wish to connect with. And I don't want to record their interview and then have them wait 9 months for it to go live. So I say that hosting your podcast gives you turbo fuel when it comes to networking, client attraction, celebrity expert branding. So here's a micro example I love to give folks. Now, Jed, you're on social media, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're other places as well. And you may occasionally get a friend request or a connection request from somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you say, oh, we have some mutual connections. We have some mutual friends. I just looked at their timeline. This seems like somebody who I could potentially relate with. I don't really know them, but you know what? I'm going to accept it. Not 12 seconds later, your DMs blow up and it's this long message from them. Blah, 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 blah. Hi, I'm the case study. Me. I was published in blah, 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 blah. Would you like to jump on how about if we hop on a quick Zoom so that we can compare synergies?
Yeah.
And the part they leave off of that, of course, is hope you're so dazzled by me that you volunteer yourself to be my next high ticket client. So, and you look at that and you say, oh, another spammer. Now imagine that I sent you a connection request. We didn't know each other, and you accept it, and you saw a message in your inbox from me. Maybe it was 5 seconds later because maybe I automated it. Maybe it was within the first day or two because I looked at it manually, whatever. And it said, hey, Jed, nice to make your acquaintance. You know, I have a podcast and we're looking for great guests on topics similar to yours. When can we have you on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what's your reaction to that? First of all, I think you're going to be relieved because you don't have to read a novel. Second, you're going to say, wait, this is somebody who's actually talking about me instead of themselves. And they're offering me an opportunity for free media publicity.
Yeah.
Therefore, the chances of you saying, hell yes, where do I book?
Yeah.
Or at least, interesting, tell me more, go way up. Now, imagine that impact exponentially on your network over time.
Yeah, I love that because it's helping me see. Sorry, I just saw that we have 10 minutes on my timer and it distracted me. Oh my gosh, I just lost that question, Adam. Let me go down to the next one. And this is part of the why I want to just keep it real and natural and just remind people that we're not going to edit this thing. And
it's like if you and I were sitting together in a cafe, it'd be like, what was I going to say?
Yeah, right.
It's the same thing.
Where before I used to get so self-conscious about, oh my God,
I'm gonna. Now what? They're all gonna think I'm stupid, disorganized. They're all gonna hate me. They're gonna think I'm an idiot and a moron. They're gonna tell me to go away. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Let's see, and we're gonna get your link into the notes about where people will contact you. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you really want to tell people today?
I think the one thing in the time that we have for this particular conversation, I really want people to hear, and this goes back to the title of the episode, is when you are a podcaster, whether you're a host or you're a guest or whether you're both, you become the voice of your audience. Here's what I mean by that. And you and I have had many private conversations about this. It's actually part of the mission of your show, is that we find ourselves dealing with issues, situations, life stuff. Maybe it's the fears that we have. Maybe it's the shortcomings we have. Maybe it's that time when we weren't living up to our best, where we screwed up. Maybe it was that time that wasn't our finest hour, or even our finest half hour. Now, due to perceptions of societal pressure, that if we dared admit to that, we would come across as weak, incompetent, stupid, whatever. We can't even articulate that. So part of the process of pulverizing patterns that I found for myself is being able to have conversations about something so that you process it over time, and you allow the mastermind principle of these conversations to help you find the ahas that give you the breakthrough that follows the breakdown. Some folks can't do that because they're just not in the place to be ready to do that pulverization. But when they hear you tell your story about that time you messed up, that time that wasn't your finest hour, that tragedy that happened to you, they can say, yeah, I can relate to that, or been there, done that. So without having to themselves raise their hand and tell their own story, they can stand up and walk beside Jed Brotherson as he tells his story and say, I relate to this guy. He's one of my people. He gets me and I get him. And you become their voice because you speak of the challenges, you speak of the emotions, and you speak of the opportunities that they are processing or in the process of discovering in that moment. So that's what I mean by, as a podcaster, you become their voice. That's why I say, as a podcaster myself, I am your voice. And Jed, you are the voice of your listeners.
Yeah. And it's so strange, the journey in getting there. And I don't want to just tell anybody that's listening that has an inkling to start a podcast is join that voice. And then it helps you find yours, to get out and share your own message, what you really want to impact the world for in a better way to do. Man, Adam, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I'm so thankful for you giving us your most valuable asset in your time. Everything is just what I'm loving right here is the mastermind principle. If we can help the listeners understand the mastermind principle to get through the breakthrough after the breakdown. I love how you just said that.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of us have heard of Acres of Diamonds and 3 Feet from Gold, which are stories of what happens when you give up just when you're about to cross the threshold or cross the Rubicon. And, to me, launching a podcast can pose a challenge to some of the traditional thinking of what society expects. Now, I've said many times, and you and I have had this conversation as well, and just to put it in context, I was born in 1976, so I'm a Gen X cusper on the verge of being a millennial. The way I describe it is I'm basically a millennial who is 2 years older than all the other millennials when I first got my first AOL account. So, but you hear all the time about, these lazy millennials and these entitled Gen Zers who they don't want to work anymore. They want everything just handed to them. They're lazy, they're entitled, and they're constantly arguing. They're constantly mouthing off. No. Here's what's going on. These are the first generations that have had consistent access to high-speed internet at a point where the internet itself became a valuable resource in terms of the volume and value of information and the ability to connect with support networks that enables these generations to challenge the status quo, to look at the patterns that have been handed down. We're talking about pulverizing the patterns, where they've been, where their parents and then their parents before them and their parents before them would say, hey, that happened to me, and look at me, I came out just fine. Like, you hear about these folks that say that, I'll tell you, if I'd even thought about looking at my mom that way, She'd have taken me out behind the woodshed and grabbed herself a switch, and she'd have beat my ass until I could sit for a week. And look at me, I came out just fine. And I say, yeah, you came out great because you talk about it constantly because you're still processing it 40 years later. So the newer upcoming generations, who, by the way, now comprise an absolute majority of the corporate and entrepreneurial workspaces. So they're not up and coming, they're here.
Yeah.
Now have the ability to look at that and say, that's really interesting that you went through that. And I give you a lot of credit for being able to pull yourself together enough to function as an adult. But there's a trauma there, and maybe there was a different way that could have been handled. And at the same time, I don't blame you, because you received from your parents what they knew. They received from their parents what they knew. They didn't have access to the internet. They didn't have access to the learning and the support. So they didn't have the foundation they could use to break cycles, to interrupt patterns, to challenge the status quo, to say, look, is there a better way that we can communicate? Is there a better way that we can impart the lessons? Is there a better way that we can uplift the next generation? And that's what millennials, Gen Zs, the alphas that are coming up, that's what they have working in their favor. You yourself, I believe you're at the very top of the millennial cohort, just as I'm at the bottom of the Gen X cohort. So there you go. And it's the same thing with podcasting. When you are a podcaster, when you become the voice, when you embrace the mastermind principle, it enables you to do that. In fact, we have clients in our Launch Your Podcast Fast alumni family, and I know podcasters themselves who started their podcasts because they had some shit to work out. And just being able to have those conversations and to be able to invite others to join them in that conversation gave them new perspectives, and also provided new perspectives to their audiences to help them break the cycles and pulverize the patterns. And don't you just love how you have me repeating your show's name over and over again?
That I do, and it's nice because it's actually in your book. It's like there's a million ways to pulverize the patterns. Once we get on board with breaking them, one thing about the millennial thing that I would like to bring attention or listeners' attention to is like I was born in 1980, so depending on what you look at, says I'm the end, just with you, the end of the Gen X or the beginning of millennial. But I was the youngest born of 7, and so my dad's 85, and I grew up on a cattle ranch.
Right.
So very traditional thinking, and then that's compounded down through all of the family. So as they're all teaching me all of the older methods, like I'm trying to think when I got the internet. I grew up in a small town.
Yeah, same here. I grew up in what the sticks call podunk. My parents were still using dial-up till like 8 years ago.
I remember that old but that's helped. Just what you're saying has helped give the access to the information that we need to pulverize these patterns.
You know what? As we wrap up here, there's another place I'd like to go if you'll let me.
Yeah.
Okay, so in my book, Groundhog Day is an event, not a business strategy, I say in 2 sections of the book that there's no such thing as the truth. So let me elaborate on that a little bit. Let's start with, just principles of human attraction. Now, a buddy of mine says, and I think it's a little bold, and I'm just going to say it, and I think our audience can laugh to themselves, is that there's a phrase he uses. He says, one man's butterface is another man's 10. And what that basically means is there's somebody for everybody. Like, there may be some women who look at you and say, who's this weird dude with long hair and that hat? But yeah. I know of at least one woman out there who thinks you're a freaking Adonis. Beautiful, gorgeous inside and out. She likes you so much, she married you.
Yeah.
And that's what really matters. So now let's get into facts versus truth. Facts can be scientifically, empirically, or otherwise demonstrated to be accurate and valid. Truth is what we see through the lens of our experience, our education, and what has formed us to have the opinions and worldview that we have. So, for example, let's say that me, you, and Alessandra, who is now moved over and is sitting on the side of my laptop here, we're all standing on three corners of an intersection. And next thing you know, bam, there's an automobile accident right in the middle of that intersection. One of us was looking right at it as it happened. The other turned our head just as the impact came through. And another one heard something and turned back 2 seconds later and said, whoa, what was that? So we're all available. The police come, we all give statements. And then there's some back and forth over responsibility. And then there's, somebody got cited. So we're pulled in as witnesses before the magistrate. And then one way or another, it comes to the point where we're all asked to take polygraphs to back up our statements. Now, me, you, and Alessandra could have given 3 different mutually contradictory statements, but all of us can pass the polygraph with flying colors. That's the difference between facts and truth. Somewhere there are facts. Somebody might have run a red light. Somebody might have been in the wrong lane. Somebody might have been texting and not paying attention. Somebody might have just had a galactic oopsie that ended up in a bunch of twisted plastic and metal. We don't know. And somebody could have had their kid in the back seat to unbuckle their seatbelt and all of a sudden climbed over the driver's seat. And it's like, whoa, you don't know. You don't know. It could have been anything from an innocent mistake to something malicious. You just don't know. Right. That you can look into the facts and ultimately determine what really happened based on video cam footage of, house stories aligned and things like that. But all of us who witnessed it and the drivers of both vehicles, you're going to have 5 sets of truths right there. Yeah. It doesn't make one less valid than it is, but that's the bifurcation. Something definitely happened. There was a specific, I can't pronounce the word specific, set of circumstances that led to it happening that will be determined through investigation. But in the meanwhile, we all see things as we saw it and would stand up to a lie detector on that. That's the difference. So when it comes to being somebody's voice, to being their voice as a podcast host or a podcast guest, you have the ability to share your opinion. You have the ability to share your views and give people the opportunity to accept it in full, reject it in full, or accept it in part and reject it in part, or just whatever. And some will be attracted and some will be repelled. This is where you find your tribe. This is where you find your circle, your people, and you build your community, your market, and your audience, your networking, your client attraction, your celebrity expert branding. So I can't remember if I said this earlier, but we have a lot of people in the Launch Your Podcast Fast alumni family who started their podcast for one of 2 reasons. Is they wanted to enter a new business market, but they never actually worked in that market, and they didn't have any track record of case studies or anything like that. So they created their podcast as a portal where they could discuss this topic and show their thought leadership, both through monologues where they're teaching about it and through conversations with others in the industry where the rising tide buoys all ships. And the other piece of in the other category, and sometimes these overlap, are people who have something burning inside them. They need to get it out. They need to process it. Like I mentioned earlier, the people of previous generations who said, well, I ever thought of looking at my mom that way, should have tanned my ass with a switch. But that worked for her, and her parents did it, and her parents did it, and her parents did it. Look at that. Generations of the family that came out just fine. That's their truth. Facts are, there could have been a better way of communicating and a better way of raising it. So as podcasters, we have the ability to create those new stories. And without dismissing the story that's been written up until now or saying it's either good or bad, be able to say, all right, let's turn the page. We're going to start on a new page, new chapter, new story.
Right. I was just talking with a friend just recently, and he's gone through Alcoholics Anonymous, and he has some amazing stories about how he's had to pulverize some seriously big patterns in his life. Yeah. And I told him, I was like, you're so good at connecting with people, you should start a podcast.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I have a guy that can help you overcome all these blocks and issues that you might have to start it. And he's so good at connecting with people because he's vulnerable, he's honest, and he's a unique person. he also has those why would anybody want to listen to me?
Yeah.
Kind of things, when at the same time he can also have thoughts, I'm the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're working through all of these patterns, and what can you tell somebody like that specifically why this is going to be life changing for them to just explore this as a new path?
Right. I'm going to take this in a parallel direction here. So he's basically limiting himself by saying, why would anybody want to listen to me? What makes me special? There's 100 others just like me. How am I going to rise above the crowd? How am I going to get listeners and downloads? And we covered that earlier.
Yeah.
So I use the example of Chuck Norris. And in addition to being an actor, he's also a martial artist.
Yeah.
And he's a martial arts teacher. So he's studied, mastered, and taught in several schools. And he ultimately developed his own school of martial arts, where he took some of the best elements of the schools he was familiar with and created his own. It had some name like Chun Cook Do that kind of sounded like Chuck Norris in a way. And then I think later on he simply renamed it the Chuck Norris system or something like that. But in that program, aside from maybe a few innovations and probably a little bit more roundhouse kicks than most of the other programs have, there's not a whole lot new there. What makes it unique, what makes it powerful, what makes it valuable is Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to your friend. I would say what makes it unique, valuable, and powerful is you.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. There's really nothing new under the sun. Another example that I give, and I cover this one in my book and pretty much everywhere, is for the past 20 years, I've been getting up on stages, going on webinars, going on podcasts, and saying that in your business, there's something you probably have right now or that you're aspiring to that can destroy your business. So if you're getting traffic to your website, you need to stop that, get rid of it, make it not no longer happen, because traffic to your website is going to be a disaster for you. And you're going to say, whoa, what? That, and they say, next you're going to tell me the earth is flat and we have 19 planets. Well, here's the next paragraph. What is traffic? Traffic is why I don't go to an office.
Oh, yeah.
And what is a website? A website could be like pulverizingthepatterns.com. That is your podcast website. It could be like jedbrotherson.com, which is the personal branding your website you're developing. It could be the other website, the exact domain, I don't know exactly what it is, where you have an offer that you make that helps people to begin this process of pulverizing the patterns. So that's 3 websites you have right there.
Yeah.
All of those things could logistically be part of one website. A website can also be a sales page. It can also be a forum. It can also be an about page. It can be a contact page. It can be a book a strategy session with me page. All those things can be websites, and all those things can be contained in one website. So what's that? Traffic to your website. Sounds like a bunch of crap to me. So what I urge people to do is to seek visitors to your web pages who conform with the 3 P's of website conversions: pre-qualified, right message, right audience, right time; prepped, they know what they're getting when they click that link to go to your web page and they're excited about it; and pumped, which means hopefully you're not running a bunch of stupid WordPress plugins to slow the damn thing down because you want them to see it right away. So pre-qualified, prepped, and pumped to a clear web page that's going to show them exactly what they're expecting and give clear directions on how to acquire that, whether it's opting in, whether it's making a purchase, whether it's simply writing a comment that says, hell yeah, man, whatever it is. So what I've done there is I actually don't deny, despite my words, that traffic to your website is critical to your business. Because, yeah, if you say you shouldn't have traffic to your website, well, that's, yeah, you might as well say the earth is flat. What I'm doing is I'm redefining it. I'm using a hint of contrarianism and a different point of view, a new point of view that may be something that nobody has heard up until now, and giving them a different reference on it, at the same time digging a little bit deeper. So I would say to your audience, I'll say to your friend, what are some of the truisms? What are some of the Yogi Berra-isms that you're afraid will be perceived as such if you go on and start doing episodes or talking or ranting or raving about them? And how can you redefine those concepts? Sometimes by just renaming them.
Yeah.
It will make you stand out.
Man, that's amazing. I like that. To drive that traffic that's pre-qualified, prepped, and pumped.
Yep. Now you're not driving traffic. You're inviting visitors to your web pages.
Sorry. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where we're at. And that helps us stay in the tribe or in the group of people of like-minded, people that help us stay in the law of attraction where we want to be and keep growing the circles in love and harmony and just betterment.
Yeah.
Man, Adam, I thank you so much for your time today. Again, your most valuable asset, and you're so generous with it. I appreciate everything that you've done.
Jed, the pleasure is all mine, and I am honored that you've invited me to be part of your journey as well, and I look forward to so many great things.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Pulverizing the Patterns podcast, where Jed Brotherson takes you on a journey to confront the roots of your discontent and emerge significant. Remember to visit our website at www.pulverizingthepatterns.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Pulverizing the Patterns podcast.